Good morning, everyone. Our topic this morning is Framework of Illusion or Mansion of Mirth. These are two songs that we find in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and they illustrate one of the most important teachings that we have from Sri Ramakrishna. And there's a very interesting play between these two songs and between the two authors of these songs. And it really emphasizes this one very important idea in spiritual life and in life in general, that the mind is everything. Yeah, Sri Ramakrishna was very fond of saying, Mon ni ekota, is all a question of the mind. We have this Sanskrit verse, line, Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandhamokshayoh. I don't know where it's from. Is it from Ashtavakra Samhita? Or anyhow, one of the important texts like that, the mind alone is the cause of even liberation and bondage. All the question of our attitude, that this very world can be heaven on earth, it can be a living hell. All the question of the mind in the way we understand things and approach things, even whether we see a snake or we see a rope, is all the question of the mind. Whether we see the reality of the appearance, whether we get great joy out of life, or whether everything is a struggle in life, is all the question of the mind. This is the most important thing. The status of this external world, all of these things are very much secondary when we look at things from this point of view. And really, this is what the emphasis we find in the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. Because of this mind of ours, we can see this world as divine, or we can see it as demoniacal. We can find snakes everywhere, or we can find joy everywhere. This goes right back to this, either we see it as a framework of illusion, or we see it as a mansion of mirth. So we have these two songs, actually, that represent these two different ideals, and both are important. This is also we'll find, that both are very important, and Sri Ramakrishna recognized the importance of both of them. So we get this teaching from Sri Ramakrishna that involves a very interesting event in the life of Ram Prasad. We heard many Ram Prasad songs with Kali Puja just in past, and another songwriter who's not very well known. His name was Aju Gosai. He lived in the same village as Ram Prasad. He used to follow him around. He was a Vaishnava. And Ram Prasad, of course, was a Shakta, worshiper of the Divine Mother. And Ram Prasad would compose these songs. Sometimes he would be singing them with great joy and bliss. And this Aju Gosai would come, and he would spontaneously compose another song to contradict that. It was a little rivalry. I don't think it was too malicious, but he was kind of a thorn in the side of Ram Prasad. And there's several other songs. Unfortunately, we don't know much about this Aju Gosai. Only a few other songs that he composed are known, but we understand this incident. And this all took place. Ram Prasad, he lived in a town called Halishohar in West Bengal. I went there many years ago, and you can see the house where Ram Prasad lived, the little temple that he had where he worshipped and everything, and it's kind of set up as a pilgrimage place, as a shrine there. So this Halishohar was well known for this Shakta tradition because of Ram Prasad, worshippers of Divine Mother, but very strong Vaishnava tradition, and especially connected with Chaitanya Deva, that Chaitanya Deva's own guru, Ishwar Puri, was from Halishohar, and several of the other very close devotees of Chaitanya Deva, this Shrivas Pandit, Murari Gupta, and some others, they all came from the Halishohar or nearby villages and towns. So it was a kind of place where you had both Shaktas and Vaishnavas living together. I don't think there was too much disharmony, but maybe friendly rivalry and a different difference of opinions. And anyhow, this Aju Goswami, he was a little bit mad, but so was Ram Prasad, and so was Sri Ramakrishna, in a good way, of course. So this is a little play that took place between them. There's a whole tradition in India where these great pundits in their earlier days could spontaneously compose long Sanskrit poems, or in vernacular language also, in perfect meter and verse, everything. And then another would come and challenge and do another one. And so this is kind of part of that tradition. In fact, Chaitanya Deva, he was a master at that. Before he had his kind of spiritual conversion, he was very learned and proud pundit. And all of the other pundits were very scared of him, that whenever they would do these things, compose these hymns and things, he would come and find all grammatical mistakes and things in them. So they all avoided him and everything. So there's kind of a tradition of that, spontaneous compositions, and others coming along and doing something to give a different point of view or contradict that. So this is a little bit of the history that we have with the first song, that this world is a framework of illusion, and the second song, a mansion of mirth. So Ram Prasad composed the first one, and almost every time that Sri Ramakrishna refers to that first song, he doesn't sing the whole thing, just one line. Almost every time he'll say, and then somebody else give an answer to that. So it seems he didn't know who this Aju Goswami was, that it wasn't so well known at that time, that it was another very skilled songwriter. It's a beautiful song, and that he did it on several other occasions. It wasn't simply one other devotee said, but this is the way we find it in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. The role of Ram Prasad and the life of Sri Ramakrishna is very, very important, because Ram Prasad and others after him was probably the most important person to convert this Kali worship from something, the image of Mother Kali as a kind of a terrible, bloodthirsty goddess, into a very sweet, not that he completely eliminated the other, but the sweet relationship between the child and the mother. And Sri Ramakrishna always looked upon Ram Prasad as his ideal, because Ram Prasad was consumed with this longing for the vision of mother and had that vision. So he was considered not just a great songwriter, but a realized soul, a great saint, and great devotee of the Divine Mother. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say plaintively to the mother, that why won't you reveal yourself to me? You revealed yourself to Ram Prasad. Why not to me? And then, of course, this is before when he had his wonderful vision and everything. So we see that there's Ram Prasad, that he was very, very well known. There's other Aju Goswami, not so well known. Ram Prasad was the kind of the court poet in those days. There was a local Maharaja, this Krishna Chandra. He would often come to Howrah just to hear Ram Prasad sing. And I don't want to go into the whole story, but it was very similar to the life of Sri Ramakrishna, that with the death of his father, Ram Prasad had to go to Kolkata and take a job to earn money. And there he took a job as a clerk, and instead of keeping accounts, he would write songs and write the name of Durga, Kali, and everything. And his co-workers didn't like him because he was honest, he didn't take bribes, and he was too religious for them. So they snitched on him, and they took his ledger to his boss and said, he's supposed to be keeping accounts, he's writing all these songs. So his boss read it, and his boss was a great devotee. Tears started coming down his eyes. These beautiful songs to Divine Mother. So he said to Ram Prasad, you go back to your village, go back to Howrah, go home. I'll give you the same salary that I gave you here. Spend your time writing these songs. And then later, this Maharaja, he also heard Ram Prasad singing these songs, and he said, yes, I'll take care of all of your wants, don't worry about anything. So he also became a patron for him. So when we see the reference to these two songs, that at first glance it seems that Sri Ramakrishna doesn't care much for the first song, that this world is a framework of delusion, that somehow he thinks this is a lesser ideal, and he is very much in favor of this other mention of mirth. But Sri Ramakrishna was actually fond of both, and he appreciated the idea that we find in both of these. This first song, this world is a framework of illusion, this A Shangshar Dhokar Tati. This Tati, I'm sure you've all seen in India that they'll take bamboo and straw, they'll weave it together, and it'll form like panels, and you can tie these panels together and make a little hut out of it. And it looks like something solid, but you can just knock it over. It's just it's a good framework of delusion, illusion, trickery, something like that. It's like a Hollywood set. You see it, and it looks like, yeah, there's a real hotel and saloon and everything, but you see that it's just, there's nothing behind it, nothing to hold it up. So this is that idea that this world is somehow like that. It has the great promise to it that it'll fulfill everything, and we find that there's something just hollow about it, that it's a house of cards. Huh? It can just be knocked over like that. So this is kind of the image that we get from this, Dhokar Tati. So looks very substantial, looks very solid, looks like something we really cling to, this world. But then when we try it, we find that there's nothing of special value to it, unless we have that one, that God in front of everything, then it doesn't amount to very much. Anyhow, Sri Ramakrishna, that, as I said, generally he just sang this first line, or referred to this first line. Maybe he sang it and then didn't write it down, but anyhow, this much we know. And then he'll mention the song by Aju Gosai. And I want to read that. Sometimes Thakur just mentions the first line, sometimes he sings the rest of the song. Ei shangshar moja koti, ami khaidai or moja luti. Or buddhi, this is Ram Prasad Sen, he belonged to the Vaidya caste. Yeah. O buddhi nahi buddhi, buddhi keval mota muti. Janaka raja mahateja, tarba kise chilo truti. Sheje edik, odik, dudik, reke, ke chilo dudhirbati. So you can just by hearing it, huh? This sing-song kind of composition. This world is a mansion, this very world is a mansion of mirth. Here I can eat, here drink, and make merry. O physician, he wasn't a physician really, but belonged to that caste. The meaning Ram Prasad. O physician, you are a fool. You see only the surface of things. Janaka's might was unsurpassed. What did he lack of the world or the spirit? Holding to one as well as the other, he drank his milk from a brimming cup. So then, as I mentioned before, Thakur didn't know who this Aju Gosai. He simply says, then a devotee replied, and then he'll recite that verse. So, but one other time, just to explain that Thakur really liked the first song, that there's an incident where M was trying to learn how to sing. And Thakur was very happy. He said, oh, you're learning to sing? And he had bought a book by Ram Prasad. And then Thakur says to him that that song is also nice. This world is a framework of illusion. So he wanted him to learn that song. So we shouldn't think that he didn't appreciate the sentiment in that. But he always brought in this other side. He didn't want to just show this negative side to things. So anyhow, this is the background. What do we learn from these two songs and why they're juxtaposed and why the second one seems to supersede the first one? Why does Ramakrishna prefer this idea of looking upon this world as a mansion of mirth rather than a framework of illusion? Now, I would say that perhaps that's not the right question. Why is it followed up by the other? He never says that this is not a good attitude to take. In fact, quite on the contrary, he emphasizes very much at the certain stages in spiritual life and for certain types of spiritual seekers to look upon this world as a framework of illusion. And we see that in many of his teachings. He'll talk about first negation, then affirmation. We take one attitude when we're climbing up the steps. We have a different attitude when we get to the roof. Another attitude when we come back down again. And in the beginning, a little bit of negativity is something that's necessary and very helpful. So we try to see the negative side of things if we're overly attached to things. And if they really bring difficulties and confusion and anxiety and everything into our lives, then we want to look at the negative side of things. At the same time, we want to be able to see that divine reality shining through everything. So it's the same world that we're looking at from one point of view or from a different point of view. All a question of the mind. This first attitude, this world is a framework of illusion, is something that we find emphasized very much in classical Vedanta. It's, of course, a very strong theme in the Buddhist traditions. Sarvam dukkham, everything is suffering. To look at the world from that point of view, not as an ultimate teaching, but to create this vairagya within us, this type of dispassion. And we'll read in Gita that this world is anitya, asukha, that there's nothing to hold on to. This dukhalaya shashvatam, this is the abode of suffering and transitory and constantly changing, to have this type of attitude. And I think the best illustration that we have of this is the poem or hymn written by Shankaracharya, Bhaja Govindam. As we hear this Bhaja Govindam, and we think maybe, oh, this is worship, some devotional type of thing. Nothing of the sort. It's all about this tremendous vairagya, how to look upon this world in a way that it'll break any type of longing for enjoyment and attachment. So I'll read a few of these verses from this Bhaja Govindam. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, Samprapte Sannahite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukran Karane. There are many of the hymns of Shankaracharya have stories that have been added to them. Whether they're true or not, it doesn't matter. But the story is that Shankaracharya saw an old man sitting by the banks of the Ganga, trying to memorize these panini, laws of grammar. And he took pity upon him. At that age, you should be calling on God. So it says, worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda, O fool. Rules of grammar will not save you at the time of death. Then we get all of these other ideas. Mudha jahihi, dhanagama trishnam, kurusad buddhim manasi vitrishnam, yallabhase nijakarmo patam, vittam tena vinodaya chittam. O fool, give up your thirst to amass wealth. Devote your mind to thoughts of the real. Be content with what comes through actions already performed in the past. Nalini dalagata jalamati taralam, tadvat jivitam atishaya chapalam, vidhi vyadhyabhyamanam garstam, lokam shoghatam chasamastam. The life of a person is as uncertain as raindrops trembling on a lotus leaf. Know that the whole world remains prey to disease, ego, and grief. Yavat vitto para janasakta, tavat nija parivaro rakta, paschat jivati, jar dehe, vartam kopi na prichati gehe. As long as a man is fit and able to support his family, see what affection all those around him show. But no one at home cares to even have a word with him when his body totters due to old age. Yavat pavano nivasati dehe, tavat prichati kushalam gehe, kadavati vayo deha paye, bharya bibhyati tasmin kaye. When one is alive, his family members inquire kindly about his welfare. But when the soul departs from the body, even his wife runs away in fear of the corpse. Anyhow, it goes on and on like this. This is a long poem, but very beautiful verses. All of these meant to bring this feeling of extreme dispassion, vairagya, and extreme longing to go beyond the surface of things, motamuti, and to get to that real reality. So Sri Ramakrishna, he speaks in these terms very, very strongly in some cases. Some I hesitate to even mention about the young man who goes home and the teacher says, nobody really cares for you, and he says, I'll give you the pill and you'll look like you're dead. And then they're all weeping and wailing, and when it's time to take the corpse out, he won't fit through the doorway. So the wife says, they chop off his body. Don't break down the door. I have to pay for that. And this young man hears all of this and then runs away. Terrible stories like that. And Thakur says that, and most of these are for his future monastic disciples. But a stage will come, this vairagya will come. This world will look like a burning forest fire or a deep well. Your own relatives will seem like venomous cobras. So it's not that he doesn't emphasize this at a certain time for a certain type of spiritual seeker. This idea, this really framework of illusion, this type of idea. He says in one place, you've seen that all is hollow. Isn't that so? God alone is substance, and all else is illusory. God alone is real, and all else has a 2-day existence. What is there in the world? The world is like a pickled hog plum. One craves for it. But what is there in the hog plum? Only skin and pit. And if you eat it, you will get colic. And then he talks about the camel, that the camel loves a certain type of thorny bush. But every time it eats it, the gums bleed. Blood is coming down, but it likes the taste of it so much that it keeps going back and eating it. So he says that this is what we do. We suffer so much in the world, and we go back and repeat the same things over and over again. But this is the pessimistic side. We have to, everything is a balance. This is why he likes the other side so much, this mention of mirth. Of course, we'll get to that. So this idea that this world is somehow false. We have this jagat mithya, this idea. I don't like to think of this so much in any deep philosophical sense, whether it's a projection of the mind or anything. False in the sense of hollow. False in the sense that it can't give us what we're seeking for in life, that we want something deeper, something lasting, that this world is a world of shadows. Really, just like this Doka Tati, this framework of illusion, that the world is something like that. A passing show. Thakur always likes this anitya. This world is just a passing show. And this is why he was very fond of another beautiful song, Bhebi Dakmon Keo Karunoi. And Mitche Brahmo Bhumandali. Mitche is mithya. That in vain do we wander through this world. That keep reminding yourselves that no one is your very own. Now, what about this that make the whole world your own? Yes, this is equally true. And Thakur taught both of these. Holy Mother emphasized, of course, the other more, to learn to make the whole world your own. But Thakur, he said the exact same words. Keo pornoi, these exact same words. No one is a stranger. But from a certain point of view, and when we have that terrible attachment, then we have to take this other attitude. God alone is the only one that we can rely on. Other people, they may leave, they may die, anything may happen, we don't know. And or they may turn on us. People we respect and think love us the most, they can turn on us. We don't know. This world is not so easy to figure out at all times. So we have this beautiful song, remember this, O mind, nobody is your own, vain is your wandering in this world. Trapped in the subtle snare of Maya as you are, do not forget the mother's name. Very often these are songs about the Divine Mother. Only a day or two men honor you on earth as Lord and Master. All too soon, that form so honored now must need be cast away. When death, the master, seizes you, even your beloved wife, for whom, while you live, you fret yourself almost to death, will not go with you then. She too will say farewell and shun your corpse as an evil thing. Exactly what we find in the Bhajagovinda, that same idea. So there's a long history of this type of emphasis. It sounds pessimistic, of course, but as I would say, it's more realistic. It's more realistic, but we don't have to just constantly dwell on that, because, as I say, this is not the final word for Sri Ramakrishna. This final word for Holy Mother will be yes, that no one is your very own, but learn to make the whole world your own. No one is a stranger. This is equally true and more helpful for most of us. So, for Sri Ramakrishna, he sees the first attitude as a way of breaking this attachment we have to the world, enabling us to see the world with new eyes, to see this world as something, see divinity shining through it. And then the whole attitude changes. So for Sri Ramakrishna, sometimes it's a two-tier type of process, that we start out with this negation, this negative attitude, and later it turns into something very positive. So we can say that this first attitude, this framework of illusion mindset, that this is primarily for the beginning stage of spiritual life, or for the jnani. The jnani may take this throughout. To just constantly harp on this idea of vairagya, but for others, just to see realistically what we can get from this world, and what this world is capable of, how much it's capable of fulfilling our longing in life. So this will be a preliminary thing, and when we say preliminary, for most of us, this is most of spiritual life. That this beginning stage can go up to the very end, because it's not a 50-50 deal. This beginning stage is almost to the very top. If we think of this anuraga that comes after Vaidhi Bhakti, that's a very high state. And I remember, I think Swami Swahananda, he said, no one should feel bad if they're still in the beginner stage of spiritual life. We go a very long way still as a beginner in spiritual life before we attain something higher. So Sri Ramakrishna says, the aspirant, while practicing spiritual discipline, looks upon the world as a framework of illusion. Again, after the attainment of knowledge, the vision of God, this very world becomes a mansion of mirth. So this is one way of looking at it, that we have one attitude until we have some higher realization. And that it's the vigyani, it's the realized soul that can really see this world as something joyful. Of course, we try to do it and we can practice it, but this is one way of understanding this. So again, he says, one should first realize God through spiritual discipline and solitude, and then live in the world. So this is one kind of distinction, that we have this attitude until we have some higher type of realization, and then we can see things. We see things with different eyes. We see things as everything is as joyful. The other is the attitude of the jnani and the attitude of the bhakta. And the jnani may emphasize this negative side more and to follow this path of neti. Now there's another path which Swami Sharanandi, the great master, he calls it the path of iti. Is it not so? We don't hear that term very often. Iti. That means look upon everything as positive. Don't say that this is not Brahman, this is not the self, this is different. Say, yes, everything is. This is that idea that we find in the Ishopanishad, that try to see everything as divine. Cover everything with the Lord. That one has to infuse divinity in everything because it's really there. So from the very beginning, try to see this world as a mansion of mirth somehow. So Sri Ramakrishna, sometimes it seems that he's saying, yes, take this second attitude. Other times he'll say, yeah, but make sure that you don't forget that this mansion of mirth is not this world of enjoyment that you're used to, that it's something else. There has to be some transformation that takes place first. So the devotee can try to look upon everything as a manifestation of the divine, try to look upon everything as divinity itself, as this Aishwarya, this divine, powerful manifestation of the Divine Mother, to have that as the positive type of attitude. But they also have to be careful, and they also have to have that type of discrimination. Now, the discrimination of the devotee is a little different. It's not the philosophical vichara, this viveka, of the jnani. It's not exactly, who is the seer, who is the object of the... It's more, what will help me increase devotion in spiritual life? What will keep me from being too attached to the world? What will pull me down? What will take me higher? So a different type of discrimination, we can say, a different type of attitude and thinking that very practical, very practical. What is it that will allow me to become free? What is it that keeps me bound to the life of false enjoyment and the false satisfaction? We get some satisfaction, of course, but that ultimate satisfaction is something different. And what will allow us to understand that ultimate satisfaction is something deep within ourselves and different from this world. So even the devotee has to have that type of viveka, that type of discrimination, to see this world as this world as worldly people see it, as something that we should be a little afraid of, and to see this world as the great souls see it, as something full of joy. To understand is all the question of our attitude. So this is one way of looking at it. We have, as I say, a different attitude for the jnani, different attitude for the bhakta. But for Sri Ramakrishna, really seeing this world as something joyful comes after realization. So he emphasizes this idea that the vignani, someone who has had that highest realization, will bring the mind back down and see the world completely differently. So if we go back again, we see that this idea that this world is unreal, that this world is transitory, that this world, there's no joy in this world, this is very preliminary, that this is really just to shake us out of this false notion that this life is meant just for enjoyment. And once we've understood that there's kind of a hollowness of really worldly life. And when I say worldly life, I don't mean that we don't get joy out of family and out of career and all of that. I'm talking about this vanity of life, just seeking for name and fame and pleasure and everything, that type of life. So to see that as something that will not be fulfilling to us. So we need to separate that which is important from that which is secondary in life. We can say they're for the real and the unreal, sad asad, however we understand it, but for the devotee or for the spiritual seeker, it's more a question of what is of ultimate value. So this mithya, it doesn't have to be some philosophical doctrine. We can really say, what allows me to live a life that's free from just the vanity of life? To go beyond that and really go for something of substance, something deeper in life. So this state of ultimate realization that comes through this type of discrimination, this is that state of vijnana, where one sees the divine everywhere, one sees everything as the manifestation of the divine, and then there's no more of this seeing everything as a framework of illusion. Framework of illusion is the snake. This mansion of mirth is the rope, if we want to understand it that way. But they're one and the same. It's the same world, depending on how we look at it. If we look at it as an object of enticement and enjoyment, it'll always slip away from us. If we see it as a manifestation of the divine, if we see it as something that we can observe, and we can appreciate, and we can feel one with, then it'll be a joyful type of experience. There was a conversation that Sri Ramakrishna had with one Pandit Shampada of Anandpur. The Pandit said, one sees God beyond the realm of Maya. So this is a traditional idea. This will be the jnani trying to dismiss this universe as Maya. Sri Ramakrishna replied, but after realizing God, one finds that he alone has become Maya, the universe and all living beings. This world is no doubt, listen to this world is no doubt a framework of illusion, unreal as a dream. One feels that when one discriminates following the process of neti, not this. But after the vision of God, this very world becomes a mansion of mirth. So we see that this is really that emphasis that Sri Ramakrishna will put on all of this. So we have two different attitudes, or we have a two-tiered type of system. And we have to appreciate the attitude of both of these. This world is a framework of illusion if we analyze it very carefully. And if we think that this world was just meant for our pleasure and our enjoyment, and that other people are meant to keep us happy, and that there's nothing else behind this world, why not make the best of it? This type of world has no substance to it. And we can get some type of enjoyment, but we'll also suffer. Now, spiritual life is not meant just to avoid suffering. If that's all it were, then there wouldn't be much point to it. That this avoiding that suffering allows us to see the divinity underlying everything and shining through everything, and to see each and every individual. Why do we get attached to other people? Because we see them as separate from us. If we understand that there's nothing to be attached to, there's nothing to be detached from, that there's nothing to be afraid of, there's no rivalry, there's no seeking, that there's a oneness, ultimate oneness underlying everything, then this world can be a joyful type of thing. Then we won't be constantly filled with anxiety and jealousy and doubt and all sorts of things. We'll be able to live in this world really feeling a connection with other people, feeling a love with other people. This is that wonderful distinction between Maya and Daya. See, Maya is another good example. Sri Ramakrishna, my feeling is that he prefers the emotional definition of all of these terms to the philosophical definition. Say, this philosophical definition of vastu, is something is real, say a vastu, something is unreal. For him it'll be something is hollow, something is insubstantial. There's Maya, not a philosophical doctrine, but there's Maya, some attachment. He does it with many of these different terms. That what is real discrimination, not so much sat and asat, but what is it that's constantly fleeting and flying away, and what is it that we can really hold on to? So we have it with these different types of terms. So with Maya, this Maya for him is more that we feel some attachment because we have a very limited scope and vision of things, and we see things in selfish terms. Who is connected to me? Who thinks the way I think? Who belongs to the same group or community as I do? And he says, expand this. If we can bring in this idea of Daya and see this common divinity everywhere, then who is there to be afraid of? Who is there to feel is separate from us or different from us? Then we're transforming the same world. They're not two different worlds. We're transforming it from this framework of illusion and turning it into a mansion of mirth. Not that it's always joy. There's always going to be some suffering. But we'll at least eliminate that suffering that comes from this selfishness. And it comes from this vanity and constantly seeking to fulfill all of our pleasures and in that kind of way. So we have these different options. If we like this idea of seeing everything as divine, good. Some people, they hear these other ideas and they get frightened. I'm supposed to look at this world as far as fire. I'm supposed to look at my relatives as venomous cobras. Then it's not for them, that's all. The Thakur always gives us these types of options. Then he says, see God within everyone, that's all. Don't you see your relatives, there's too much attachment or something, and then feel that the attachment is because of God dwelling within. Take that attitude. So we have different ways of utilizing these things, different attitudes that we have. So the bhakta will have this other attitude, cover everything with God. And the jnani perhaps more this attitude, don't be fooled by anything. Don't be fooled by this world. Look for that reality within. The devotee say, yes, look for that reality everywhere, shining everywhere. So Sri Ramakrishna would make these distinctions sometimes. But we have to understand, devotee also, that this world is a dangerous place. That really we get too attached to something, we can suffer very much. So Thakur says that it's like walking on a path strewn with thorns. He said you have to wear shoes, cover your feet with viveka and vairagya, with a little discrimination, a little dispassion, but also devotion. So this is the way that we can avoid falling into this trap. We have other songs that talk about this world as kind of a labyrinth, that we go in thinking that we'll be able to find our path out and we'll get stuck there. So there may be times we're drawn to one ideal, that we like to think that everything is joyful. Other times when we see how much pain and suffering there is in the world, we understand that let me not get too involved with all of this. Let me not become overly identified with it. Let me do what I can to help, but at least have some little detachment from all of these things. So these options are open to all of us, different spiritual attitudes. But after realization, this seeing this world as joyful is something spontaneous, it's something real. It's not an attitude that we adopt. This is that transformation that takes place, that state of vigana. And something that is a very blessed state. This is one of the really, I think, original teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, this idea of the vigana, that the attitude one takes after realization, one may look upon this world in all these negative terms until that realization. Then everything changes afterwards and sees everything as a manifestation of the divine. Now, before we close, just one other thing I want to mention. We hear the name of King Janaka, that he drank his milk from a brimming cup. That's part of that song. And that Janaka is one who attained realization through karma. Karma eva. In Gita we have that, he samsiddhim astita janakalikat. So Janaka and others, they attained the highest type of realization through karma alone, through action alone. But Sri Ramakrishna says that we don't know how this King Janaka also had to do so much of spiritual practice, had to develop this dispassion, all of these things, that it's not such a simple thing. So we can't simply jump to the roof. Sometimes we have to be very clear-headed and see the negative side of things so that we protect ourselves a little bit, but understand that that's not the final goal and that's not the final attitude that we have. That once we reach that higher state, then we see everything differently. Then we can live anywhere. We can mix with anyone. We can feel divinity everywhere. Enjoy this world as a manifestation of God. So then it'll be that mansion of mirth. So I thought that it was a very nice way that Sri Ramakrishna gives us these teachings by juxtaposing these two different songs. So let us stop here. And we can sit for a few minutes. There'll be another song at the end. What is the song? It's Dancing on the Battlefield, that song. Yeah, okay, good. Okay. And the other will sit for a few minutes first.